Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar, AI Search in 2026. We are so glad that you could join us this morning. I am Andrea, and with me is my business partner and our webinar presenter, Matthew. For those of you who may not know us, we started Elementive in 2014 with the goal of helping businesses improve their websites and their visibility online. Today, we continue to work with clients of all shapes and sizes to resolve technical SEO issues, to optimize for search, including AI search, and so much more. If you'd like to learn more about who we are, we invite you to visit our website, elementive.com. Just a few notes before Matthew dives into the content today. We are recording the webinar and we'll share that with all the attendees who signed up later this week. As well, we do have time at the end of the webinar for questions, so please feel free to post those in chat as they come to you. So thank you again for joining us, and Matthew, let's go ahead and get started.
Yeah, well, thank you all for being here with us today. We're excited to have a chance to talk about AI search and just sort of the overall state of SEO and search or GEO or whatever we want to call it now. And I think that's where I want to start today is just by saying that everything about the state of SEO right now, everything about the state of AI search feels really chaotic. There's a lot of noise, there's a lot of hype, there's a lot of strong opinions being posted on LinkedIn. Certainly, I know when I look at my LinkedIn feed and read forums, there's a lot of big people, big opinions being expressed here about SEO is dead and it's all changing and it's all different. And meanwhile, other people are saying nothing is different at all. It's all just the same stuff that it was before. And of course, we're hearing people say, you're not going to get any traffic to your website. So what does that mean? Is that even true? Right? There's a lot of noise out here with this. And I think as we've talked to our clients, talked to others in the industry, there's just a lot of confusion. A lot of people are feeling overwhelmed. I know Andrea and I both are a bit because it feels like everything is just kind of constantly changing. But as we take a step back, and kind of think through everything that's happening right now, there are some themes that are emerging that seem to be the themes that really describe what the new state of search looks like. And maybe they're similar to some of the things we've always done with SEO, but maybe it's different priorities, different ways of thinking about things, a different approach to take to everything. And as we've worked with clients and seen what's working, what's not, there's kind of five main themes that are really standing out that matter more than specific tactics or specific projections about the future. But there's overall themes that seem to be guiding more successful strategies, and these are the themes that we're relying on to inform what people ought to do in 2026 and how we ought to be approaching SEO now, AI search, GEO, and how we need to be thinking through it. So we want to talk through those five themes today in this webinar, go through what we're seeing, why these themes seem like they matter, and what that might mean for us in terms of tactics that we should take for our website. So I'll go through each in detail, but just at a high level, I want to hit on what they are. Starting with the first one, that our goals have changed. And for better or worse, the goal is no longer just about traffic. I do think traffic still matters, but it matters in a different way than it has in the past. The second big theme is that prompts are not queries. And that sounds kind of obvious, but I think there's some real intricate implications within that as we step through and think about the differences between prompts and queries and what that means for us in terms of content, but also what that means for us technically and how we need to alter what we're doing and how we're building out our sites. Third big change that's really different is that AI search has a different architecture than traditional search. And they really are attempting to solve the problem of search in a different way. So they're trying to deliver search results in a different way. They're both ultimately doing the same thing, trying to answer a question. But AI search doesn't have an index in the way traditional search does. It's not responding in the same way. And that changes a lot of things. It shifts around a lot of priorities within that. A fourth big theme that we're seeing and another big change is that we have new visitors, new high quality visitors who are coming to our website. They're not just human. They are, in a lot of cases, fully automated, in other cases, partially automated. It's AI tools coming alongside humans to visit our website, or it's automated tools visiting our website instead of humans visiting our website. And so that's a new way of thinking about it. That's a new way of understanding what kind of value our website is delivering because so much of our value structure within SEO, within marketing, within online business, just more generally, is about humans coming to websites. And now, as we have automated visitors, what does that mean? What does that look like? And we have to shift to support that. And one big way we have to shift to support that is the fifth theme that I want to talk through today, which is what we're referring to as bot usability or agent usability. So, how do we really build good, quality, usable websites for bots, for agents, and also for humans? And how do we think through that? So, those are the five main themes that I want to talk through. So, jumping into the first one, the goal really has shifted and it's not about traffic anymore. And I think to understand why it's not about traffic anymore, we have to think about what are these systems actually doing. In traditional search, the idea was we're going to retrieve a list of links and give you that list of links for you to go explore on your own, right? That was the whole idea behind rankings. That's the whole idea behind how Google has worked for 20 plus years, right? That's the whole idea is you're returning a list of links. Now, there's a lot of sophistication within that. There's a lot of nuance within that. There's a lot of detail within that, but it's all about here's a list of links, go click on something. And when we come to the generation side, to AI search with generative AI driving search results, it's not about that at all. What it's about is here's an answer to your question. Here's a full and complete way of addressing, the thing that you've actually asked about in the prompt. And so when you think about it that way, that the goal of AI search is to generate that full and complete answer, it means that if there is a click out from that response, then that response almost didn't do its job correctly, right? It didn't give a full and complete answer. And so a click can almost be seen as a mistake or a problem with the AI search tool because the AI search tool didn't do something right because you still needed more information. You needed to go and click. How we've been referring to this is that AI search is more of a closed ecosystem. Not entirely. There are some ways that you can get traffic out, and there are specific instances where we still may get traffic. But by and large, AI search is more closed than open, where traditional search was more open than closed, right? We got more traffic out of traditional search because it was designed to send more traffic out. And because AI search is a closed ecosystem, our goal, what we're really going for, has to change, right? It's not about getting traffic because that's not what this system is designed to do. Instead, it's about participation. It's about how do you get cited? How do you get summarized? How do you get included in the actual response? Agentic brings in a really interesting layer to this because as we think about agentic shopping in particular, all of a sudden that shopping, that transaction, that happens in the AI tool, right? That's happening on the system, not on your website. And so we have to make sure that that AI tool can actually do something on our website, can actually interact with our website or interact with the agentic feeds or the protocols that they're introducing and that we're starting to see more and more people use. So that way we can be participating in those other platforms, right? And not necessarily expecting people to come to our website. So traffic really becomes that secondary outcome. And that changes a lot of things, but one thing in particular it changes is how we have to measure search and the value that we're getting out of it. So some of the things that we're starting to pay attention to and think about to capture and understand that value are things like bot crawl tracking. Now, this is something that for years, right, the recommendation was always, hey, you should look at your log files and understand how Google crawls your website. But this is really different level of tracking bot crawls because we're trying to understand not just did Google come to our page and find something, but did they actually come to our website and do something? What pages did they actually engage with? So there's user interaction bots like ChatGPT user. You can also start tracking ChatGPT agent as well. And so we can start to see not only did they come to our website, what pages, but how did they use our website? And it becomes a way of almost analytics like tool to understand what these automated visitors are doing on our website. There's a few different tools out here. Obviously, server logs are one way to get that. If you're using WordPress, there's really great plugin called Dark Visitors that gives you some ways to measure this in a way that's a little bit easier to engage with. And they have some really great reports. We have a video all about that on our YouTube channel, so you can check that out for more about dark visitors. The other thing that we can measure is we can measure some of the traffic that we are getting from these systems, right? Because they do send some traffic. In certain cases, people do need to click to a website, right? There are times where that's happening, particularly bottom of the funnel where people really want those extra details or really high stakes queries where people want to double check something and make sure that the response was correct. So we might get some traffic out of this, and we need to be tracking that and look for that in GA4. But again, it's not the primary thing that we should be measuring. It's alongside all these other things that we should be measuring. Another big thing that we want to start measuring and that we've been seeing for clients a lot is that there's indirect traffic coming to the website, which is to say that it's not attributed traffic like we're used to, right? It's not going to be telling us that it came from ChatGPT or that it came from Google or that it came from Gemini, but we see these spikes in direct traffic happening. We go, well, where did that traffic come from? And is that traffic possibly coming from a brand mention in an AI response that we weren't tracking, right? It's not attributed back to us. It wasn't a link, but somebody saw our brand name and then they came to our website directly. And we're starting to see that more and more for a lot of our clients where their direct traffic has actually increased pretty significantly. The other thing that we're starting to see in direct traffic as well is what looks like automated visitors coming in to the site directly. They're coming in and entering and using the website. We can tell that they're really kind of doing something. They're even converting on the website, filling out forms. And we don't know where they're coming from. And this breaks the premise of data-driven marketing that I think most of us are really used to and really like and was really advantageous for a number of years. And we don't necessarily have that in the same way that we do. So we have to look for that indirect type of visit to our website that we can't really attribute back, but that's still a way of capturing value within this. The other way that we can measure the potential value of AI search outside of just that click is we can look at brand mention tracking or AI visibility tools that are out here. And there's a number of AI visibility tools that are starting to come out, and it seems like there's a new one every day that is out here. They all, kind of work in various different ways. They have some interesting features on them for sure. And it's kind of all though pointing to they're trying to understand how we're included in that prompt response, how our brand is being talked about, how our website is being referenced relative to competitors. The biggest thing to keep in mind if you are using a visibility tracker of some kind is that they are all an approximation of reality. They are not capturing real prompts. So they're using synthetic prompts, which is to say that they're using prompts that are not real prompts, not real things people are entering in. So you want to make sure that whatever prompts you are tracking in these visibility tools are really based on something close to reality. Where we've seen a lot of value with this is companies who are reaching out to their customers and say, hey, did you use ChatGPT? Did you use AI mode to find us? If so, what prompt did you enter? And they're starting to collect what those actual prompts were. And the actual prompts are really interesting. And then you can modify from there to find other things to track. The companies who are struggling to get real value out of visibility trackers tend to be the ones who are just using ChatGPT to come up with what those prompts are instead of basing it on reality. The second change that we're seeing that really is kind of influencing how we need to think about strategy is that prompts are not queries. And again, like I said before, to a certain extent, this sounds obvious. Of course, they aren't the same thing, and I think we all intuitively know that. Right? You have a very short, phrase that you're entering into a search, query. That's what we're all used to. Prompts are much longer. I think anybody who knows me won't be surprised to hear that my prompts are really long. I have been known to write paragraphs and paragraphs of text as my prompt, and they can be really detailed. So one study that came out last fall was looking at some leaked data from ChatGPT. They found on average prompts were about 42 words. So that's really long. And some of the prompts that we've seen from our clients that we're working with when they've talked to their customers and gotten what those real prompts are, they are really long, right? They're several sentences in length, describing lots of detail, and that's very different. Right. And if we're trying to optimize for that, we're trying to write content for that, well, it's very different to write content that will work for something super detailed as opposed to a brief phrase, right? We can't just try and optimize for a keyword by attaching a brief phrase somewhere in our text, putting that in like we've, done in the past with keyword optimization. Now we really have to think through how might somebody describe this? And am I describing it in the same way in my text that somebody might describe it in their prompt? The other thing that's really different about prompts, that same study found that about 75% of prompts were commands or task-based. We've seen this too in other studies and in other prompts that we've looked at, is that people are asking it to go do something, right? Go do research for me, go summarize this article for me. Now with agentic, go shop for something for me. And so these task-based prompts, that's very different than queries, right? Even as we think about kind of previous categorization of search queries, right, one of those categories was transactional or commercial queries, where it was clearly somebody with an intent to purchase something and they were searching for it. But they were searching for it as a phrase, and it was still very much informational driven, right? It's just informational, maybe closer to the bottom of the funnel. But now we can go all the way to the very end of that funnel with a task-based prompt. So how do we write for that, right? Not just how do we show up in that commercial, search query, but how do we actually get used by the AI tool and make sure our website is the tool they are using to complete that relevant task? The other thing that makes prompts really different is that they rely on a lot more personalization than what we ever saw with search queries. So if you and I enter in the exact same search query into Google and we look at the traditional results, right, the typical 10 blue links, those results, we're probably going to see pretty similar results. Maybe one site's a little higher, maybe there's something that's more local and that's going to shift it a little, but they're almost the same, right? There's some personalization, but it's slight. But with a prompt, it's very different. So even if you and I enter in the same prompt to Gemini, to ChatGPT, to whatever tool, same exact prompt written the exact same way, asking it to do the same thing, it's going to return a very different type of response for me because it knows my history, and it's going to return a very different response for you because of your history with the tool. And they're all a little bit different, right? ChatGPT and Perplexity seem to do this a lot more than Google, but it's all way more personalized than what we're seeing with traditional search. And there again, that means we have to think about optimizing our content, not just for a particular phrase, but for all the different kinds of personal context that people may have as they're going in and typing in a prompt. The other part to this that I think has gotten a lot of attention, a lot of people are talking about, is the word vector search within this. There's a lot to vectors that we can kind of think about, but the main idea here is that vectors are a way of capturing intent, capturing meaning, capturing semantic relationships. And this is something Google's been using in traditional search for several years, all the way back to like BERT and MUM when they rolled out. But AI search takes it to that next level within this, and we do have to really move away from optimizing for specific keywords to optimizing for intent. The clients that we've seen that are doing that, those are the clients that seem to be succeeding with AI search and seem to be getting citations, seem to be getting mentions, seem to be getting that indirect, direct traffic coming into their website that is actually proving to be quite valuable for them. The third change has to do with the architecture of the system. And at the core, AI search is very different because it doesn't have an index. When you really think about what SEO has historically been the practice of SEO. It's about getting into Google's index, right? That's really what we've all been optimizing for because Google, yes, has to go crawl something and they have to render pages, and there's a lot to think about there. But ultimately, they're crawling and they're rendering in order to put stuff into an index, right? Into their database of all the things they know about. And Google has invested millions upon millions of dollars into making their index an incredibly great resource to be able to return things that are relevant, that are accurate, that are authoritative. I will be the first to say there are tons of mistakes, right, that Google makes, but it is really good what they can do with that index to return search results and to rank things that are really relevant to a search query. So that's the practice of SEO as we know it. And AI search breaks that because there really isn't an index, right? What there is that's driving the search result or that response to our prompt is the large language model. Now, there are things called RAGs, retrieval augmented generation systems, that rely on a knowledge base and they're pulling things out of that knowledge base, but they're giving it to the LLM. So they're telling the LLM, hey, here's some stuff that you may want to use in this response, right? And so what that means is that we're really optimizing for two different systems within generative AI search, right? We have to optimize for that large language model and make sure that it's going to say things about our business, hopefully positive, good things about our business, our products, our services. But we also have to optimize for that knowledge base that's influencing the large language model. That's a lot different than optimizing for an index, right? And we have to think about that in a different way. And it's actually a little more complicated than that, right? When we think about it, because there are other things that are feeding into that large language model besides that knowledge base and besides the training data, right? Think about agentic, right? There's all the APIs, there's all the protocols, there's the feeds. That's coming in to the LLM as well. And they could potentially use that to respond to a prompt that's being entered, right? The LLM could also be using real hits, real-time hits to a website. So they could be going to the website in real time to fetch information and bring that back, right? There's other kinds of agentic tasks that they could be completing as well. They're going to feed into that large language model. So it's really about that large language model and then all the other things that feed into the large language model. And we have to make sure we have things in our SEO strategy that are really supporting all of those individual items that feed the large language model. The other thing that all of that means is that we have to change how we're optimizing our content, right? It really has to be about patterns, it has to be about relationships. If you are trying to optimize for an exact match keyword, I want to go after this particular head term. I want to, it's the most popular thing that people are typing in. That may still work, right? There still may be traffic there with traditional search, but that's not going to be the same way to go after things with AI search, right? Because we don't have that head term in the same way, right? We don't have those popular phrases. Everything within AI search is long tail, right? It's all very niche down. So that means we have to change how we're optimizing and how we're writing our content. So we have to think about topic coverage. Are we really explaining everything about our topic on our website? Are we really covering all the nuances and all the details within that could potentially be picked up by the LLM? The other thing that seems to be really important that we've seen several clients now benefit from is improving internal consistency within the content. So making sure that pricing information or specs about products or information about your business that's really clear and it doesn't contradict itself somewhere throughout the website, right? It's very easy to end up with things contradicting itself because you updated this one page 5 years ago and you updated this other page 3 years ago and now you just wrote a new page and they all kind of say different things. And so you have to go through and you have to figure out, well, what's inconsistent and how can I realign everything to make sure that I'm explaining things correctly within the training data. The other part that's in here, another term that I'm sure we've all heard and probably are sick of hearing, is entities. So entities, there's some complexity within that, but ultimately the main idea is you want to clearly define what you're talking about, right? What are the subjects of your text? And that's stuff that you can do within content, but there's also ways to support that technically. So, are you writing things technically in a way that is really clear, right? Are you using proper HTML tags? Headers seem to matter. Using semantic HTML tags like main or section, that seems to help, right? And it seems to, make it easier for these AI tools to pick up on what the page is about, what the topics are within here. This is also where schema potentially fits in, and it isn't clear yet whether or not schema actually helps or not. Some people are saying yes, it does, and look at these results. Other people are saying no, it's not. Look at these results. We don't know where it fits in. It's still kind of up in the air with clients that we've been working with. It seems like sometimes schema might help, sometimes it doesn't. And so it's something to experiment with to see if that's a way to get those entities and those topics covered more completely. The fourth change, and I think the one that changes technical SEO a lot more, is that the new visitors coming to our website aren't just human. There's a lot of automated visitors coming to our website. And so we have this mindset within SEO that bots are just passive observers, right? They come to our website, they fetch content, and then they go off and they do something with that. That's what Google's always done. And so we can kind of rate limit Google, we can restrict Google, we can kind of make sure Google only crawls our website in certain ways. But that doesn't work with the new types of bots and agents interacting with our site, right? They're now actively using our website and actively trying to do things on our website, and they're going to be busier on our website, right? They're going to consume more server resources on our website. And so, how do we support that? And what can we actually do within that to make sure that they can actively use our website? There's a couple different kinds of bots and agents that are out here now using our website. We have some reactive bots or reactive agents that are coming in where they have been asked to do something by a person, and then they're going and they're completing that task on behalf. ChatGPT user works this way, right? I've entered some kind of prompt. ChatGPT either directly knows from what I've asked it to do or indirectly knows because it's implying something from my prompt that it needs to go to a website, summarize some kind of information from that page in order for the LLM to respond. So that's a reactive user who's coming into the website in real time in response to a prompt. We definitely want to support that because that means that maybe we have a chance of getting included in that response. The other kind of tool we have are the agents that are coming into our website. So Perplexity Comet, ChatGPT agent, right? And this is where we can give them specific instructions and say, hey, go do all these things for me. And I can give you a lot of details and a lot of steps, and it can go complete those steps for me. So it can go, find items and shop for me, or complete some tasks. Or on lead generation websites that we've been working with, they can go and they can, fill out a lead generation form and actually complete tasks for us. And what's interesting about agents is that right now, they're usually on behalf of people directly. So I've asked it to do something and it's going to go do that. But increasingly, we're getting to a point where agents can go do these things without the human being at all involved. So we have the potential for human not present visits to our website where a human is only very indirectly involved in what the agent is doing. And so that becomes an even more important type of visitor to our website that we need to support. And as we think about supporting these visitors, there's really six main tasks that we keep coming back to. And the clients that we've had that are the most successful supporting bots and agents are paying attention to all six of these. So it's discovery. How did they actually find all the pages on your website? Crawling. Can they fetch all the pages on your website? Rendering. Can they case into their index, or in ChatGPT's case, Perplexity's case, bring it into that knowledge base that will then be used to feed the LLM. Training, which is where can they actually pick up this information, understand it, and use it to train the LLM and make sure the LLM knows what to do with our content. And then the last one is interaction. Can they actually complete tasks on our website? So we need to support all of those to really make sure that we're working as well as possible with these new types of visitors. And I want to hit on a couple of things within that a little more deeply. The first is that the way in which bots are picking up content is different, right? It's not a complete and total page, right? Starting in October 2020, Google rolled out passage indexing, where they are going to extract passages from a page, not the page entirely. That doesn't mean we need to just write passages, right? We still need to write good whole pages because Google's definitely using that. OpenAI is definitely using full complete pages too. But we need to think about how certain parts of the page could be used in isolation from other parts of the page. And are we supporting that technically? And are we supporting that with how the content is written? The other big thing that changes here too is rendering, right? Right now, ChatGPT, Perplexity, Meta's AI tool, they do not execute JavaScript, right? And even Google, while it executes JavaScript, that's a second step, and they don't always complete that second step. So it's really important that the actual content we want bots and agents to interact with, or that we want included in training data, is in the server-side HTML, and that we are making sure that we're not relying on JavaScript for that really critical content on our website. So we need to make sure that we're testing how our website works with JavaScript. How dependent is our website on JavaScript? And where might we have problems with how our website is rendered for AI bots? And is there something we need to change about this? So I do have a separate video on our YouTube channel all about different ways you can test rendering and different tools you can use, including a lot of free tools you can use to test rendering, even at a simple level. So that might be something you want to check out to look at and see, how your website, is currently rendering for AI bots. The last change that we're really paying a lot of attention to is what we're referring to as bot and agent usability. And this is really the new technical SEO or maybe even technical GEO, where it's about how do we intentionally support bot and agents using our website. So this takes everything about usability that we've had to think about for years with humans, right? Usability, accessibility, user experience, and how do we apply that for bots and agents? And what's interesting is if you watch agents start to use the website, you go through their reasoning chains, they're thinking through how to use the website in a similar way to how people think through how to use a website. And they're relying on the same types of things, right? They're relying on the HTML structure and the page's design to understand how they need to use the page. So, what can we do to maybe test that out, test out how well they're using the website, and what can we do to improve that, right? And so, that's a new discipline and new something that we need to start thinking about. And clients we've been working with who are improving that bot usability, improving their website to make it easier for agents and bots to go do stuff, are starting to see that, hey, we're getting a little bit more activity from ChatGPT user, or we're getting more, what looks like agentic visits coming into our website. So we need to start testing that. We need to start thinking about that as we go through. And the biggest reason why we need to do that and start paying attention to that is that we don't want the AI tool, whether it's Google or ChatGPT or whoever, to say, hey, I can't actually access this thing that you've asked me to access, right? You go to Perplexity, comment, and you say, hey, go to this website and, find this product for me and add it to the cart. If it comes back and says, yeah, I can't do that on this website, guess who's going to get blamed for that failure, right? It's not Perplexity's comment browser that's going to get blamed for that. It's going to be your website, right? Why doesn't your website work with this agentic tool? And we don't want that type of error. So this is a new type of error that we have to monitor and think about, a new type of broken experience that people may run into that could indirectly affect our brand and our reputation, right? If people start to think that our website just isn't usable, isn't going to work. So we have to think about that ability for bots and agents to access and use our website and render our content and make sure that we're using the proper kinds of HTML to help those bots and agents get around our website. Something as simple as switching from using buttons to A tags for helping people navigate our website, for helping agents navigate our website, seems like it might matter, seems like it might help. So as we think about bot usability, there's maybe four big areas of focus and some things we can start doing. So the first thing that we can do is rendering and test how our website is rendered. Second thing we can do is we can check our website to make sure that firewall settings, hosting settings allow the AI bots and AI agents that we want to support on our website that our customers and our clients might be using. So even starting simple with just asking ChatGPT to summarize URLs from your website or asking ChatGPT agent to go complete tasks on your website can be a good way to just start figuring out, do I have problems here? Is there something going on? Speed is obviously a big part of this. That's obviously been a big part of SEO and user experience and conversion optimization and everything else for a long time. So, of course, it's going to matter here as well. We've been finding that time to first byte probably matters a lot more than some of the other metrics when it comes to evaluating how well the website works for bots and agents. So, maybe paying attention to that helps. And then structure matters a lot, right? Clean HTML, semantic headings, right? Logical internal links, clean content that organizes everything, clean navigation structures, right? All that seems to matter. So really looking at your website and trying to understand how well is your website structured. This that I've talked about lens to think about AI search and what we need to do here. And the way that we're talking about this with clients, the way that we're seeing things kind of work out the most successfully is not to think about it's this or it's that, right? It's either all this new stuff or it's, what, we were doing before. It's both of these things, right? And you have to think about both of these things together. So your 2026 strategy absolutely should support all the things we know work for traditional search, but your 2026 strategy also needs to include all these other things for GEO, right? It needs to think about site structure, semantics, relationships, intention that's being communicated within content. Are you being included by large language models? And how are bots and agents using your website? And so all of that starts to become important to add alongside all the things that we've already been doing for SEO. So obviously there's a lot to that. If you do need help with that, that's what we're here for, and we are happy to help you with that, whether it's just wanting an hour to talk through some questions or a full-on audit or anything in between. Andrea and I are always happy to help with that. We have YouTube and LinkedIn full of resources related to all of this, so certainly check that out as well. But I know we have probably about 10 minutes or so here left in our time together today. So be happy to take any and all questions that you have before we wrap up. So, Andrea, what questions have come in on chat?
We don't have any questions in on chat yet, but if somebody has a question, I'll give you a few minutes to think about that and post it. But in the meantime, we continue to get questions from clients as they are navigating AI search. So some of the kind of themed questions that we keep hearing are things like, um, if a team has limited resources, what's one of the first things that they should focus on for GEO optimization, continuing to do work in that space or embarking in work on that space?
Yeah. I mean, I think where I would say to start is just start by monitoring, start by testing things out before you even jump into optimization. Um, some of the things I was talking about here at the end of, how's your website rendered? Just do some simple testing with that. Go to ChatGPT, try to ask it about your business. What does it know? Just try and get even a handle on that. Setting up like dark visitors to be able to measure and monitor things. I think that before you even dive into, what specifically can I do or what specifically can I change or how specifically should I think about X, Y, or Z, um, just getting that baseline understanding, just starting to monitor things becomes super important because what that allows you to do is it can give you an ability to spot, oh, okay, I'm not getting, bot activity. I'm not getting agents visiting on my website. I'm not getting, some of these things happening. Well, why is that? Or maybe I am. And now I can look at, well, what pages are they going to? Oh, they're really hitting my blog. So I need to pay attention to this. Maybe I need to write more blog posts, right? So it starts giving you those ideas of where to focus. So I'd say start with measuring and monitoring.
That is a good lead into a question that Christine posted. Do you have any preferred mention or citation tracking tools?
I don't know if we have any preferred ones that we would necessarily recommend more than any others. I would say there are some things to think about as you are looking at different tools that are out there and what you may want to decide works best for you. I think one of the biggest things to think about is how the synthetic prompts that they are going to monitor are generated. So what are they doing and how much control do you have over that? Some tools are doing the generation for you. Some of these tools let you come in and just define all of them. Some of them kind of have an in between the two. So that's one big consideration point I would think about. The other big consideration point I'd think about is how many synthetic prompts you can track. Because this isn't based on reality, because these are an approximation of reality, you want to make sure that you can track a sufficient number where you have a decent sample size that you can work against. And so you can say, okay, I've got enough where even though this is an approximation, I feel like this is, pretty accurate within here. Andrea, I don't know if you have any other thoughts on that or what to look for.
No, I think you hit on the big ones. And there's a lot of tools that, offer kind of the free entry level, test it out, see what works and how the tools work. And then obviously can move it into paid tiers. So we would also suggest sign up for some of the tools, get your 10 free prompts, see how it works, see if it starts to meet your needs. When we share out the recording today, we can also share out some of the tools that we do have clients that are using them. So if you need a seed list to go explore, maybe that'll provide some options. So we'll definitely include that when we send out the recording. If anyone has any other questions, please feel free to post those. But otherwise, we'll just throw out one more question that keeps coming up pretty regularly, which is with traffic patterns changing and evolving and shifting in the kind of age of AI search, how do you report success to leadership um, in terms of kind of your online activity and presence and what's happening?
Uh, it starts with a lot of education. I think before anything within the reports of just helping executives understand that it's a different world and it's a different way of understanding things now. Because if your expectation of I'm going to report on value by saying how much traffic I got or by saying how much revenue we drove from that traffic, that's not going to work with AI search. The volume is just not there. Um, so instead, I think it starts with that education of there is value here, and here's what we're seeing. And so, how many times were you mentioned relative to a competitor? That's a good metric, right, to be able to have. I think it's more meaningful metric if you can actually do even a limited survey or interviews with your customers and just say, how are you using ChatGPT? What did you find in ChatGPT? Get some of that qualitative data about how your actual customers are utilizing the tool. That's really useful to tell an executive of, hey, we interviewed our customers. We see, this coming up. These are the kind of things we're hearing. We made these changes. You do another round of interviews, you see improvements, right? That starts to demonstrate some of that. Log files, I think, are starting to prove to be, really valuable because it's an actual number that we can look at. How many times did ChatGPT user come to our website? We made changes. Did they come to our website more? Did they engage with the right types of content? Same with ChatGPT agent. I'm tracking this. So, how many times are they using it? Super small volume, but am I seeing more value? So those are the things I would start to point to and think about within there.
Perfect. We had one more question come in, so we'll make this our last question for today. But um, when you say synthetic prompts, you're meaning that Profound, SEMrush, or other tools are making the prompts as opposed to when we create the project and campaign and upload our own prompts.
So by synthetic prompts, I mean any source that's generating the prompts. So whether it's SEMrush, whether it's Profound, whether it's you, whether it's you via ChatGPT, if you're creating what those prompts are, you're coming up with what those prompts are, right? We are making those up as best we can to approximate reality. So whether it's a tool or whether it's you, we are having to kind of create what those prompts are and what those prompts look like that we want to track. Because we don't know what the actual prompts are that people are entering in, right? Google's not telling us what people are entering into Gemini or AI mode. ChatGPT is not telling us what people are entering in as actual real prompts. So we're having to make guesses about what that is. And so those guesses are the synthetic prompts that we're using to track within here. Awesome. Well, we can wrap up there then. But yeah, thank you all so much for joining us today. And yeah, please, reach out if you have any questions or need any help with any of this. We're absolutely happy to talk with you about any and all of this.